it's Sarah Larby, guest host and producer of Everyday Investor. Thank you for tuning in. We have a great guest today, Kayla Andrade from Ontario Landlords Watch. Look, there's great things about being a landlord, being an investor, and you can make a lot of money, but there's also some things to be aware of and some potential problems. And so Kayla is a great advocate for landlords, and she's going to come and talk to us about different things and different resources that we have at our fingertips. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back.
Right off the bat, we have the non-payment of rent. That's what scares a lot of investors from wanting to get into the industry, is because of non-payment of rent. But normally that wouldn't be a problem if the landlords did have a proper dispute resolution program in which they technically have the landlord and tenant board, but there's such severe backlogs at the landlord and tenant board that is resulting in landlords into having great difficulty evicting non-payment tenants for years.
Hey everyone, it's John Tebrick from Blackjack Contracting. This week's tip is about the process with contractors from start to finish. You got to understand there's more than just building. We got to do the design phase. We got to do the estimating phase. We have to get the project implemented. We got to actually do the construction. We got to wrap it up properly. It takes time, and that's why it's super important to get the contractor you want involved earlier in the process. Having a job starting in 3 days and not being able to run the whole process is going to rush and lead to mistakes. So you need to get them involved minimum 30 days in advance. You want to get all the information, have a proper scope of work, and you're going to have a successful project. So remember that there's just more than just building the construction, and by planning this out in advance, you're going to have a super successful project, and I think it's going to be great. Thank you for having me this week, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
The mortgage world has changed. Has your advice? Are you looking for a modern approach to your mortgage planning process? Advice tailored to your unique, ever-changing circumstances? Whether you're upsizing, downsizing, purchasing, or refinancing, the Kyle Ford Mortgage team works with individuals and companies to custom tailor the right mortgage product for you. Working with a wide selection of lenders, we're here to serve our clients and help them achieve their real estate and retirement goals. Contact the Kyle Ford Mortgage team today, Canada's mortgage choice.
Hey guys, Omar Khan here from Theta Trading with a weekly market update. Now, the markets have had a really bad start to the year. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones are all down substantially. Now, the question is why? Well, as we've talked about before, the markets don't like uncertainty. And right now, you have a lot of uncertainty. There's a war going on in the Ukraine. There's high inflation, high interest rates, high gas prices, high natural gas prices. This is all causing inflation. Now, when inflation is high, what happens is the central banks around the world, they have to raise interest rates, which is what we're happening right now. This slows the economy down and it brings asset values and investment down. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. But our job is not to panic and to really understand what we've invested in. Back to you. We'll see you next week, guys.
Welcome back. Today we are speaking with Kayla Andrade from the Ontario Landlords Watch. Kayla, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me on.
I'm excited to have you on. You've been a big advocate for small landlords and really, helping us understand and maneuver through all of the ups and downs of being landlords. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about what it is that you've been doing for so many years.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it for almost 12 years this July, where I've been advocating for landlords' rights as well as tenants' rights and for taxpayers, and really to create a fair and balanced housing system for all parties involved. And that comes with getting to bring our solutions to the elected officials. But in order to bring solutions, we really need to dive deep into the issues and really help our elected officials see the problems so that we can work at it together.
Okay, so let's take a step back even from there. So, somebody that's looking at becoming a landlord maybe has one or two properties. What kind of potential concerns or problems are we referring to right now?
Right off the bat, we have the non-payment of rent. That's what scares a lot of investors from wanting to get into the industry, is because of non-payment of rent. But normally that wouldn't be a problem if the landlords did have a proper dispute resolution program in which they technically have the landlord and tenant board, but there's such severe backlogs at the landlord and tenant board that is resulting in landlords into having great difficulty evicting non-payment tenants for years, literally years, not months. And then they're now getting very discouraged about being in the industry, so they start investing into to other provinces or other states. So we need to put the brakes on. We need to analyze what our issues are because we can't afford to lose any of our supply. So we need to really get down and understand the issues so that we can indeed come up with a better solution of dealing with the non-payment of rents and working with elected officials in order to accomplish that.
Okay, so essentially you help people understand better the rules and the regulations about being a tenant, being a landlord, and just create an opportunity for potentially more housing, right? For more people to get into the housing market and want to be landlords. How did you get started originally? I mean, are you I know you've got some properties yourself. How did that all come about?
Yeah, well, I was 18 when we bought our first semi, and we were renting in Cambridge and bought a semi out in Brantford. But through our challenges of getting more properties, we ended up buying this fiveplex. And the fiveplex, we had a city councillor who came around and was telling us, hey, do you know that if you're going to be responsible for your tenant's delinquent utility bill? And at that time, I had no clue about municipalities, didn't know anything about the Residential Intensity Act and Landlord and Tenant Board. And then we started going through the process of learning how to have your voices heard at a municipal level and understanding that elected officials and the government is very heavily involved into this industry. So understanding the water billing, I knew that we had to have more power in numbers. So I started calling landlords from Kijiji and saying, hey, this is what's going on. We really need your support. Let's go down to City Hall and voice our concerns. And we realized through our petition that we created by a lawyer in Toronto that there was much more to this problem that landlords were facing. It wasn't just water billing. It was the issues of the Residential Intensity Act and Landlord and Tenant Board. And over the years, it has progressively gotten worse. So that's when I said, okay, we have to pool everybody together. We need to make sure that they're together so that if something does like this come again, I don't have to spend my time on Kijiji. I can inform them through a group very easily. And that's why we decided to make Facebook group one of our homes in a way for us to communicate with the community.
Amazing. So I do want to say that this is completely free. I mean, it's not like you're charging for this. This is just an opportunity, I think, for landlords to be able to have a place to go to, right? A place where they can share ideas, understand, what's happening for landlords in different provinces. And I think you're specifically focused on the Ontario region. But tell us a little bit about like that group and maybe how it's helped landlords along the way.
Yeah, like our group has grown to about 6,600 members. We still have 2,900 members waiting to get in. So unless they know, hey, I know Sarah, then we can let you in a little bit quicker. We're helping them out with their day-to-day questions to help them avoid problems before they actually get themselves into trouble where they do have to go to the Landlord and Tenant Board. And then we're helping them guide them through navigate the Residential Intensity Act, the Landlord and Tenant Board, and also give them very out-of-the-box thinking ideas and making them, it's all about the education. It's the education that teach them how to be good landlords and how to teach their tenants as a customer and to treat them with respect. So it's going to be a lot of pre-learning for them, and it's going to be from landlords who are new all the way up to very experienced investors. And then we advocate and we bring our solutions to these members to get their feedback from what we're trying to gather from all the issues that we hear in the group. We create the solutions as a group, and then we bring it back into the group to get their feedback, and then put it through our public pages so that we can get that voice out to media as well as elected officials.
So what obviously this is a show for everyday investors and many everyday investors are listening to this, tuning in, even being interviewed, and you are an investor yourself. What are some things that they could do, let's just say if they want to ensure that they have a great relationship with a tenant, in terms of ensuring that they get payment on time? Like, has there been some new programs or things in place to help landlords, with more access to different tools?
We have to really educate our landlords about tenant screening. That's going to be this number one tip that we can give our landlords is tenant screening. And the way that we started to work with different tools and through the advocacy, we know it's very slow, but we have to look at different products and different services to help our community. And it helps good landlords and it's going to help good tenants. So the first tool that I found after Bill 184 had came out was Landlord Credit Bureau, and now has branched to Front Lobby. So landlords can now report their tenants' monthly payment history to the credit bureaus for a tenant who has a good payment history, yes, the tenant will need to give consent for that to be reported to the bureaus. But if it is a debt that's going to be reported to the credit bureaus, then the tenant's consent is not required and a judgment is not required. And for all the good payments that are being reported to the credit bureau, that's going to help the tenant grow and improve their credit history. This is going to set them up for financial freedom through being able to potentially be a homeowner or a landlord themselves, or to help them get the next accommodation so that they can show the next landlord their payment history of how they were able to make rent on time. And that is what our landlords are needing to do all around. And even in the States, it's mandatory for rent reporting. So this is going to be the game changer for the housing industry for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard lots of great stories as well with people being able to get paid on time once they start using that service, but also the other way around where, great tenants are able to build, like you said, a good credit history to be able to down the road, hopefully buy a house or whatever they need to do. So that's awesome. I do want to go back though, and you mentioned Bill 184, and I'm assuming that not everybody knows, what that means. So, for everyday investors out there, like what is that and why does it matter for many people?
We spent a lot of time consulting with Bill 184, really diving deep into the issues and recommending solutions through over the years, and especially for the time frame of their consultation. It had a big discussion with the elected officials. We were a part of that discussion. And then we thought it was really going to narrow down to the real issues that landlords were facing. But sadly, it was more restrictions. Similar to Bill 184, it was, there's a fine. So if you are now doing unlawful evictions, which is, could be something minor, but if you're caught evicting a tenant underneath an N12, which is the landlord taking it over for their own personal use, they can now be fined $50,000 for an individual and up to $250,000 for a corporation. So they really just really put heftier fines on for the real estate community. They also had a rent increase. Part of that Bill 184 is so that if you gave the wrong paperwork to your tenant, or if you have given more than what was allowed to be raising your rent, you're now going to be able to still collect that rent, and it will be considered lawful rent as long as the tenant is now paying that new rate on time with no problems for 12 months straight. So they almost gave us a little tidbit, but they didn't get down to the issues that landlords are dealing with, and it's having the broken system at the landlord and tenant board. So that's why we wanted to understand that we do have, tenants who are abusing the system, and they are the ones who are ruining it for our good tenants. So we really, as landlords, good landlords, we want to make sure that we're giving everything that we got to help our good tenants.
So you get a lot of calls, right, from tenants, from landlords, from many different people. What are you seeing are some potential changes in the market these days? Are people getting out of the market? Are people still investing in being landlords? Are they being more cautious? Are you seeing more of a shift to short term, or what are you seeing out there?
It's funny when you say I get calls from landlords and tenants, because I do get calls from tenants, and they said, "Oh, is this the landlord and tenant board?" And I'm like, nope, but what can I help you with? And I will help them, and I will guide them. But when the landlords are calling, the number one is the N12s, taking it over for their own personal use. The market is hot. They want to pull out. They want to get into other provinces that are still considered to be affordable for buying, or they're getting into the States. But they've really had lost hope into the way that the Ontario market is, especially with the control and a lot of speculation of what could be happening with more restrictions towards the private investors. So we're really trying to open the eyes to the elected officials to see that small mom and pop landlords, which they are the majority of our housing stock, we need to protect that as much as we possibly can. And we're just letting them see this is what we need. This is why we're seeing more people wanting to take over their units for their own personal use, or why they want to sell the property. It's because when you're only able to raise the rent to 1.2% and all the other expenses are increasing, it's a business. The numbers need to make sense.
Absolutely. I mean, lots of great insights. I think when we get back from the break, let's go over, what some of the things landlords should be doing, not necessarily to be part of the group. I know we talked about that, but just more about just ensuring that they are doing the right things. They are, being good landlords as well, and finding good tenants, and how to avoid some of the pitfalls. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Hey, it's Kyle from the Kyle Ford Mortgage Team. Do you have a difficult to finance property? Have you been rejected because of the condition of the property, the location, or the terms of your application? These are the deals that myself and my team specialize in. We look through all tiers of lending from A, B, C, down to individual private lending to find a customized mortgage solution that allows you to get in, stabilize the property, and give you an adequate solution for long-term holding. If you're struggling to get your deal financed, make sure you reach out to myself and the Kyle Ford Mortgage team.
You've always dreamed of having rental income, but buying a rental property? Well, that's a tall order. Capitalize on the space in your home instead. Renovate and rent out that space with ease with LegalSecondSuites.com and the team at Wise Construction Group. With LegalSecondSuites.com, our talented team of BCIN designers, engineers, carpenters, and tradespeople can transform that unused space into a beautiful, legal, and safe rental unit. We're empowering the everyday homeowner to become an extraordinary landlord. Get more out of your home. Visit LegalSecondSuites.com for more information.
Hi, it's David Smith here from the Q Theta Fund with your investment tip of the week. Now, one of the things investing in the stock market is the stock market can actually go down, and it does quite often. But that's actually a good thing. In order for the stock market to go up over time, it has to come down at times. And there's reasons for that. Sometimes the market gets very speculative, bubbles can form, people get too excited in the short term, and drives the market up higher than it really should be. When the market comes down, that actually kind of is a cleansing effect, and it allows things to settle down, which eventually lets the market go up higher over time. This is something you should understand, that it's not something to be afraid of, but something to embrace and be prepared that this will happen. So in order to make money over the long term, let the market come down in the short term from time to time. It becomes a healthy market, and it allows your investment and the market to grow, which is exactly what you're looking for.
Welcome back. Today I am speaking with Kayla Andrade from the Ontario Landlords Watch. Kayla, welcome back. So one of the things that we often get questions about somebody new that's starting and wanting to be a landlord is what they should be aware of before they go ahead and buy that first rental property to become a landlord, to make sure that they're doing the right things and that they have a good understanding of the base or the foundation of, for example, what we need to know in Ontario. Any thoughts, insights and things you can share on that?
Yeah, of course. So right away, our landlords, if you are in whatever province you're in, you're going to need to read the Residential and Tenancies Act for your province. A lot of it's going to be different from each province that you're in. I love Alberta. They seem to be very basic. Ontario, on the other hand, is very complicated. So in Ontario, you're going to have your standard lease. You're going to be having addendums. You can attach addendums, but they have to make sure that they're not conflicting with the rules of the Residential and Tenancy Act. If not, if you do have to go to Landlord and Tenant Board, it's just going to be thrown out and not being able to be enforced because it's going to go there. You want to make sure that you're getting your tenants information for a proper rental application and making sure that you have a clause at the bottom of that rental application that gives the landlords the information or give them the permission in order to do a credit check on that in particular tenant. And then you're going to be doing your checks, pulling your credit checks through Front Lobby and getting the long form credit report and getting the tenancy record with it with the score is going to really help our landlords choose which type of tenant they want to pick. Then you got the concept of employment. So now you're getting your reference checks and you're validating them. And you got to be careful. There's many tenants out there that don't shine as well as the others, so they will end up doing a Photoshop type of fake ID for credit checks as well as for work employment. So really getting them online and getting to check and trying to validate that in particular person for the reference check actually works out. And then you're going to make sure that you're getting their tenant insurance. Tenants are very responsible, so when we do have tenants who are able to get their tenant insurance, to have that on file, that can help out the landlords as well with their insurance as for the properties. So making sure that you don't skip any of those processes, don't give the keys away unless you have first and last month's rent. It's our rule of thumb. But understand that we do have great tenants out there and they're going to be able to provide this information for you without even having to ask them. And the next part for our landlords that they need to take into consideration is to be organized. So that's why I became the ambassador of TenantQ, because that is the #1 platform for the do-it-yourself landlords, which is going to be free for 3 units or less. And that's what we're always about, is helping our small landlords. So really getting them into a program that keeps them organized, keeps everything documented, and #1 rule of thumb when you're dealing with rentals, document, document, document. You never know what could happen or how the relationship could go, and make sure that you keep it on a business relationship, never personal.
That definitely documentation is going to be important. You know, you never know when you're going to need it. And so you talked about Tenant Cube, and that's essentially, it sounds like the management portion to just get everything, processes, procedures in place to manage. Is that accurate?
Having yourself from an application process, electronic one, having the way for the tenants to upload their information into this platform, and being able to review or decline any type of applications that are coming through, and also helping you get those listings out to the most popular listings so that you're able to be having your rental unit listed in where the good tenants are looking for as well. And then you have your maintenance to be covered. You're going to have your payment portal, so tenants are able to pay through this portal. And again, this is all about that documentation. Even for a tenant who is trying to make a payment, a maintenance work order, they're able to now communicate with the landlord through this portal, and the landlord can actually get their contractor dished out and be able to go and do that job. And that's all about the documentation, because if we are coming into problems with tenants for non-payment rent, they will bring up that maintenance issue. So always make sure your maintenance is up to snuff.
So it sounds like it's a good opportunity if somebody is not wanting to pass everything off to the property manager, to be able to keep a little bit of that in-house and still be organized, even if it's 1 property or 10 plus properties. And you said it's free for under 3?
Yeah, free for under 3, and then it's $2 a door. And then they have their higher packages of $19 a month per tenant. So it's still affordable rates that our small landlords are able to do and keep them organized, because I think we're at a point in our industry that we can't do spreadsheets anymore. And I think a lot of our landlords are doing that. So this is going to be their cube of everything that they need to stay organized, because if you ever do have to go to the landlord and tenant board, you need to make sure that you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and you can't afford to mess any of that up.
I mean, when I think of you, I think of you know, all the resources, right? Like, you provide resources essentially for landlords to be able to say, okay, I need this, or here's how I can be more organized, or here is how I do my tenant screening. And I want to go back to the credit checks, because, you know, recently, you know, I think there wasn't a system where everybody can go and report the payments, report the non-payments of rent. But I think that is important, because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, you definitely are in it much more, but that gets reported to, like, Equifax as an example, right? So if they don't pay and it goes to Equifax, or if they pay and it goes to Equifax, but I think there's also a way for other landlords to check, and you can leave some notes, right? Like, did they trash the house when they left? Did they leave it in great condition? Like, is there a place where you can see other people's prior notes?
They have notes between the landlords and the tenants, so a landlord can put the notes on the file within the dashboard or front lobby, in which that could be viewed by the tenant. So that will stay there. The one thing that from doing your rent reporting is that it is going to be reported to Landlord Credit Bureau and Equifax. And the best part is that if there is a debt that's being reported, it's going to show that as a trade line. So when other landlords are conducting their credit checks, they're going to see a trade line, and it's going to show the amount owing and showing that it's now in the arrears. So it's going to really help our landlords be able to choose which type of tenants that they want based on what they're going to be seeing on the type of credit history. But at the same time, a lot of landlords just look at the score. They have to look more into the details of trade lines, and our landlords are able to get that easy to read, affordable credit check, where a lot of landlords think that they'd have to go directly to Equifax themselves, which you have to have so many to go directly to them. So bringing those affordable credit checks and making sure our landlords are doing it and not accepting any other credit check that comes to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like that's another great resource for landlords out there. Are there other ones that we should be aware of?
Right now, we need to get our landlords the education too. We have to get it. I know that for me, in May, I'm doing that one-on-one consulting with our landlords who need more in-depth training, so to speak, from the start to the finish, even just talking to their landlords. But we do have to see that our credit checks that we are providing and able to do the rent reporting, that's going to help you when you put that into your initial ad for your rental unit. That is going to be the power that's behind this service, is that you inform them, the potential tenants, right away that you do rent reporting. So it's going to attract the good tenants to you, and it's going to shy away people who are not going to be willing to meet their end of the agreement and pay rent on time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that only works if you're taking tenants on and you're not taking over a tenant, like a prior tenancy, right, in a property, right? So if you're buying a fiveplex and there's a bunch of tenants, I mean, you can't really kick them out and start again.
No. So but it's obviously the program can be utilized for the current tenants. They can as soon as the landlords get into the system and they say, hey, I'm putting you into the system. I'm going to send you a welcome email. You have the option for me to give me consent to report your good payment history, and the tenants will. They know how it's actually helping them. They have given a lot of feedback to say how it's helping them improve their credit and get the rental unit that they want and setting them up for success. And then you have the other side of it where you inform the tenant that if you do not pay your rent on time, I don't need your consent and I don't need an order, and it will be reported. So that will be reported to the bureaus in the middle of the month for the previous month. So it still gives our tenants time to reach out to the landlords, open that communication, make a payment plan, and then report that payment plan to the bureau. So it's not going to be, oh, you're late, that's it, we're going to report it. It opens up the conversation to have that negotiation and a way for you to avoid having to go to the landlord and tenant board to do your collections. The tenants are now being fully aware of it because they are getting emailed that this debt has been to be reported.
I mean, I think it balances out the tenant and the landlord relationship a little bit more to equalize it, right? So that everybody has that clear communication, but that it's not so one-sided. So let's just say somebody at home watching this has questions, or maybe they have an issue that they want to run by somebody. Like, what is a good resource that you say you could ask your questions here, or go get your information from this platform? Like, what are some resources that you would tell somebody that's maybe experiencing maybe some concerns with the landlord and the tenant board stuff, or maybe even before it gets there, some questions about wanting to make sure that they're a good landlord, not get themselves into trouble?
Always Ontario Landlords Watch.
Okay.
We're going strong for 12 years. The members they make Ontario Landlords Watch, the members do. I come in, I give my piece whenever I can, I keep everything organized, but our members are fantastic. And giving that family, that community sense when they're asking questions, because a lot of people are very hesitant on asking questions because they might think it's a stupid question, but it's not. It's the stupid question is not a question.
Somebody else might have the exact same question and be happy that they can go to it and read the answers.
That's the thing. We have 12 years of history within our group. So always putting that concept of what you're going with, putting those into the keywords, and you're now going to be able to see past posts and past questions and what those answers were. So it's going to be a great way for our community to learn from other people's mistake. And I always say education is the key. So if we can continue to keep educating and providing different products and services while we're advocating, we're just keep building the community.
I mean, congratulations, and thank you, because I will say, you don't get paid to do this, right? You're doing it, I think, just out of passion, having been, and still being a landlord and having gone through this experience, but you're dedicated to making it more of a fair system for both landlords and tenants. And even I think you've started talking to the board, and they're starting to ask you for some insights and some input, which I think is great. So, thank you for all you do. I know it doesn't go unnoticed, and I know all the 12 years that you
on TV, Sarah.
all the 12 years, right? I mean, it is a lot, and I definitely think it's a great resource, because I go on as well and I see lots of questions, great questions, and sometimes it avoids having the same problem, right? Just knowing some of the things that somebody unfortunately might have gone through, not to repeat it. And so thank you so much for everything you've been doing. You at home, thank you for tuning in. Definitely reach out to Kayla, and that group is free. So, join the group, ask your questions, and we have support. We are going to unite, and we're stronger together. So thank you so much for tuning in.